thing is, until you can erase 3 Februaries, shut up. Burn! Quality over quantity. LeBron has beaten some of the best competition in NBA history. He's the GOAT emoji. I will not cuss. I will not cuss. I will not swear. I will not swear.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is the Brian Snow Show.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Monday edition of the Brian Snow Show here on Snowman Multimedia. We got a lot to do and a short time to get there.
I love the branding. I just love the branding, man. It's awesome.
Thank you. I had so much help from so many friends to put that intro together. This fellow here held a position I once wanted as a child, and that's to be the announcer of The Price is Right. But when I first discovered the show, I was a bit young at the time. He held the position. He worked with the greatest in Bob Barker, and we're going to talk about that and much more. Please help me welcome Rich Fields. He's with me right now.
The crowd goes wild. Brian Snow, come on down.
I love it. I love it. You don't know, for years I've wanted to hear that from either Johnny Olson or Rod Roddy or someone who was there. I never got a chance to make it out to Studio 33, but man, what was it like telling people to come on down, for using that phrase for such an iconic game show for as long as you did?
A huge thrill, Brian. I mean, like you as a kid, my mom, I've told the story many times. She can back me up. I mean, I'd stand in front of our television set in Avon, Ohio as a little kid, holding her black hairbrush like a microphone, saying, come on down, or it's a new car. And, you know, they thought I was nuts, but I told everybody. I mean, from grade school, I told classmates, I told the nuns at St. Mary's, I told everybody. I told college roommates, I told professors, I told everybody I worked with in radio throughout the years trying to get there. I told everybody, someday I'm going to work with Bob Barker at The Price is Right. And it's just amazing that it all came to fruition.
Trust Your Inner GPS. I love the title of that book. There's the cover right there, folks. And look at that. Look at those smiling faces. Look at those faces, man.
Man.
I mean, talk to me about what a person's inner GPS is.
It's your intuition, Brian. It's your intuition. And rarely do we listen to it. We hear it. We probably talk with it subconsciously all day, but we rarely take its advice, and it's really a pathway to your soul and what your soul knows and wants for you. And if you just listen to it and go by its guidance, it will lead you to your ultimate dream in life. You may not even know what it is, but if you give yourself some quiet time and say, hey, intuition, my inner GPS, what's my ultimate goal in life? What am I supposed to be here for? Immediately, if you're listening, it tells you, believe it or not. All you got to do is query it. All you got to do is ask it. And I was lucky enough as a little kid and have parents around me who taught me the value of trusting your intuition. And I was lucky enough as a little kid to have this intuitive thought that I'd work with Bob Barker someday. And every decision I made was with one goal in mind. Is this step going to get me one step closer to The Price is Right in Hollywood? Everything I did, and whether it was a class in college, whether it was accepting a radio gig, is going to this market, is moving to this station, is uprooting everything. Is this move going to get me one step closer to being the announcer with Bob Barker on The Price is Right? If the answer was no, Brian, I didn't go, or I didn't take the job, or I didn't take the class, or I didn't, I didn't act on it. But Beautiful. If the answer was yes, I went.
I love it. My intuition, for many, many years, as we talked off the air, I had several intuitions, and I've acted on all of them. I've done some voiceovers for some friends because people love hearing my voice, and they
say, "You got a great voice.
You should get into voice acting." So I'm doing that, and they also told me my love of sports would lead me to be a sports talk host. You should try that.
And you do that.
I did that. I started that on my own, and My favorite play-by-play announcer of all time growing up in Chicago was the late great Jim Durham, voiced Bulls games for many years. And I
Yep.
said, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it. And that was my inner GPS touching me at 10 years old when I first heard the Bulls on the radio back home in Chicago. So on a whim, here's a story about trusting your inner GPS. I was at Chicago State University. I was 23 years old, and on a whim, my friend Kevin checked out a camera, and I said, "Can you attach a microphone to that camera?" He said, "Yes." And he saw this evil grin on my face. He says, "What are you up to?" I said, "I want to try something." So he races back into the office, checks out a camera. We go over to the gym. Chicago State was playing Northern Illinois. And he said, "Here's the microphone. You attach it here." And I attached it, and he goes, "What are you up to?" I said, "You know who Jim Durham is?" "Yes, I'm going to be Jim Durham tonight." That was the first game I called.
Awesome.
Northern Illinois and Chicago and Chicago State. And you said it. When you trust your feeling and make the moves that get you to your goal, and it's a grind and a half. Believe me, it's a grind and a half. I've been doing this now almost 30 years, and it's just so much fun being an announcer. I know it's a blast for you. The first day you were at the Bob Barker studio, and the first day you were on, were you nervous the first day?
I was more excited than nervous. I mean, because I was in my 40s by the time I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, been through a lot of radio stations already, and was already dabbling in television a little bit. And I'd already been a meteorologist at a CBS station out in Palm Springs area. So, I kind of had some background to me, but the magnitude of walking out on that stage for the first rehearsal of my very first audition day, because all the shows were going to be used, on the air. So walking out that very first day for rehearsal, and there was nobody around, there was no audience, the staff is just starting to come out, the cameramen are just starting to take their places, and stagehands and so forth. And I stood out there on that Mark Goodson Daisy, where I stood with Johnny Olson 25, 30 years earlier as a teen, whole nother story. And I stood out there, I looked at the audience, I looked at that little seat that I sat in as an 18-year-old when Johnny Olson called me to the stage. It was during his audience warm-up that he happened to have me up on stage, and just remembering all of that and thinking, oh my God, I'm about to walk over to that podium and do this. It was almost overwhelming internally, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the nerves didn't kick in until the actual show taping that day. And it wasn't because of that I wasn't ready or I wasn't familiar with the copy, Brian. It was more like, my God, it's going to be Bob Barker. He's going to come through those doors. I'm going to be announcing him. I'm going to be announcing that. Just the magnitude of that kind of started to get me nervous. But like with anything I've done in my life, I just kind of bowled through it. Just go forward. Just move forward. Don't sit and contemplate the nerves. I always turn it around to excitement and say to myself, I'm not nervous. I'm excited to be here, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to contain your excitement and it turns to nerves. Don't let that happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's oh my Lord, it's happened to me with the many stadiums that I've been in over the years. The first time I ever did it, I did a high school game at Soldier Field back home in Chicago, and I'm the same way you are. I was walking through, we were going upstairs, getting into the press box, and I'm in Soldier Field, and I had to contain my excitement, and it is very overwhelming. It can be if you let it be. I should say it that way. If you let it be overwhelming, it will overwhelm you.
Yeah.
And you announce Bob Barker, he comes through the doors for the first time. What's going through your head?
oh my God, I'm actually working at The Price is Right. I may not get this job. I know there's other people auditioning.
Mhm.
I had 1 week of shows to do, 6 shows because we do 2
Yep.
a days at The
Mhm.
Price is Right. And I thought, wow, if I never get this job, I can't believe that I dreamt it and it's happening now.
Yes.
And then I had to shake that thought because I don't like to think anything that could have been intuitively negative about it. So instead of,
Mhm.
I shifted it from, even if I don't get this job, I just shifted immediately to, oh my God, I'm getting this job. I know there's
Mhm.
other people in line. I know there's other people to audition, but I'm freaking getting this job and I'm going to prove it
Yes.
right here, right now.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. And then came the show where Bob Barker formally announces you as the announcer for The Price is Right. That
It-
show right there is where it's one of the first times I learned about you and what you were doing. And then he says, "Let's have a big hand for Rich Fields."
The new
How did
Price
that?
is Right announcer,
Yep. How
Rich
did
Fields.
and he came back from a break with that. How did that feel when he welcomed
I
you?
didn't know that was going to happen, you know, and I was just elated. I mean, you can probably see it on my face in the video. I was just
Yeah.
stoked. I couldn't believe Bob Barker, was introducing me as his new announcer in The Price is Right. It was out of body, Brian. It was
Mm,
out of body.
I believe it. I believe it. And seeing that happen, and then you go forward and you realize I am standing at the podium where Johnny Olson, Rod Roddy, and others made famous. And I introduced Bob Barker. He's coming through the doors. And of course, when he comes through the doors, the crowd goes absolutely crazy.
Berserk. Berserk. And that podium, that original podium that I used for pretty much my first year was, in fact, as you mentioned, Johnny Olson's, the original Price is Right podium, Johnny's podium,
Mhm.
Rod's podium. They all worked at it. Johnny 15, Rod 16, 17. The numbers
Mhm.
I'm sure are off, but and people will correct this now in the comments down below. But I'm telling you,
Yep.
that thing was used for like 30 years, and
Oh, yeah.
before they changed it out, and I got to use it too. So before they changed out the podium and started making wholesale changes on the stage, I got to use it. And I found that podium. This story's in the book, by the way. I found that podium one morning when I drove into work. As I was walking up the back ramp, me and Mr. Barker parked out back so people in line out front wouldn't see us enter, because
Right.
they just go berserk, And so I'm walking up the ramp out back coming into CBS Television City, and in one of the dumpsters was the podium. And I couldn't believe it, Brian. I was like,
Yeah.
what the F?
What- Yeah, right.
And so I ran in and I tried to find people in charge. I found one prop master. He says, "Oh no, they've replaced your podium." I was like, "What?" "Oh yeah, they got a new one." I couldn't believe it. So I went and got Roger Dobkowitz, the producer of the show. I said, "Roger, new podium?" And I kind of understood that, but I said, "You're throwing the
Mhm.
old one away?" "Oh, did they throw it away?" I said, "Yeah, it's in the dumpster out and back." I said, "What's up with that?" And he was like, "Well, why do you want it?" I said, "You're darn right I want it."
Exactly.
He
Yes.
goes, "Well, let's check with Mr. Barker first and make sure that's okay." I said, "Well, if it's in the trash, what would he care?" "Well, let's just check with Bob first," because he was executive producer of the show.
Yep.
Well, Bob came in that morning, parked next to me. I was waiting, man. He parked next to my car. He started coming in. "Good morning, Rich." I said, "Good morning, Mr. Barker." I said, "Real quick, can I direct your attention to that dumpster right there?" He said, "Yes." I said, "That's the announcer's podium in the dumpster." He looked at me and he says, "Why is the podium in the dumpster?" I said, "Well, they've made a new one and it kind of matches the set for this season. And they've thrown the old one away." "Well, they shouldn't have done that. That should go to the Smithsonian, or better yet, that should go downstairs where the queue line is. And every show, about 300 people, 2 shows a day, 600 people." He goes, "All day people could stand at that podium, maybe in plexiglass with a microphone coming out of the plexiglass with some speakers saying, 'Joe Blow, come on down.'" And
Mhm.
I thought, wow, that's a great idea. Put a plaque on it, the original
Yeah.
podium of The Price is Right.
Yeah.
He goes, "That's where it should be." I said, "Oh." He goes, "What did Roger say?" I said, I asked him, he said to speak with you. Well, if he doesn't have any plans for it, go ahead. You want it? I said, yeah, go ahead, take it. And I have it to this day. It's upstairs in my recording studio right now.
Wow. So
to
not
this
only
day.
did you make history, you have a piece of history
Oh, I've got a lot.
from the Price is Right.
I've got
man.
so
I
much.
mean,
I don't know if you can see behind me or not in this shot, this two shot, you probably can't see it, but that script behind me here.
mhm.
Let me see if I can pull it into the shot for you.
There you are.
That is the script from Bob Barker's final show, autographed by Mr. Barker. That's my script. That's the announcer script. It's the only script.
Mhm.
The only script in the show. And after the show, I had Mr. Barker autograph it for me. So I got a lot of memorabilia, all kinds of memorabilia, stuff
when
on the
he-
walls.
When he made the announcement that he was retiring, what was the first thing that went through your head?
It was the day before Halloween of 2006.
Mhm.
And he came in. I was in my dressing room. We had already had the morning meeting. We'd already gone through the script. We'd already gone through blocking with the director and the models. And I was in my dressing room sitting at this little sofa that Johnny used to sleep in and Rod used to nap in. And I was sitting there, and there's a knock on my door. And I said, yeah. And it was Bob. He opened the door. He said, Rich, do you have a minute? I said, sure. He said, if you have to go, let me know. I said, no, Bob, I'm fine. I got about 10 minutes before rehearsal starts. And he came in and he closed the door. And when he closed the door behind him, I thought, huh. I didn't think, uh-oh. A few times in my career, I thought, uh-oh.
Mhm.
But this was a huh. And he said, well, I want to tell you something that only a handful of people know right now, but I wanted to tell you face to face. Bob knew I was in love with him. I mean, Bob knew of
Mhm.
my respect and admiration for him. And he said, this morning I made the decision and I'm going to be retiring at the end of this season. And I was like, in my head, I was like, no, don't leave now. Oh my God, I've only had
Right.
like 3.5 years with you.
Mhm.
Don't leave now. That was in my head. But immediately the politician in me came out and said, oh my God, Bob, congratulations. What's this going to make, like 50 years for you in TV, right? Yes, exactly. It's going to be around 50 years. And, I'm going to step away while I still can. My problems. Bob had horrific back problems, horrific knee
Mhm.
problems, almost debilitating. In the end, they were debilitating.
Yeah.
Bob was confined to a wheelchair in the
Yeah.
end. But yeah, it was crushing for me. It was crushing to hear the news. And then it started to filter out to the rest of the staff that day. And everybody was like, oh no, what's going to happen to the show now? But for me, it wasn't so much that, I could have gone back to meteorology right away.
Mhm.
It wasn't so much a love for the show. For me, it was more of a love for Bob Barker and it really started questioning me. My wife and I actually had conversations, Brian, about, gosh, do you want to stay?
Mhm.
Because we knew the show would never be the same. Do you want to be associated with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we didn't know who they were getting.
Mhm. I will never forget something that you said. I was watching a game show special, and when they said the line that Bob Barker's retiring, I will never forget your reaction of Bob Barker's retiring. No, stop the world. I want to get off.
I do remember saying that. Wow.
He said,
Yeah,
stop the world. He said, stop the world. I want to get off. And my dad, it was 2006. It was my dad came in, came into my room, he heard me laughing, and he said, what was that? I said, yeah, one of my heroes, Bob Barker, is retiring. And then he saw you and he said, what did he say? I rewound the tape and I played it, and he said that, and he just said, I agree. And he walked out the room.
Wow.
Because I never thought as kids, I was so blessed to see The Price is Right as long as I have and watch it for as long as I have. And it has not been the same since Bob Barker retired. That is so very true. And just to have the camaraderie that you had with the staff there and the fun that you had. Because I know even with the warm-ups, because I learned about the warm-ups from watching Johnny Olson do it on a tape special. What were your warm-ups like? What did you borrow to put into your warm-up routine?
Well, I knew because at 18, my dad took me to see the show. We broke into CBS. You've probably heard that story. We actually broke into CBS, and we got caught backstage. And to make a long story short, we got to go into the studio and watch a taping of The Price is Right that day. It was really to sequester Dad and I from being able to give any answers because we'd seen all the prizes backstage already. That's where we snuck into. And then that's when Johnny Olson was like wrapping up his warm up, and he said, "Are there any questions out there in the audience?" And I raised my hand and back, and I said, "Yeah, Johnny, I got a question for you. How do I get your job?" And the audience, they broke up, Brian, like the laugh track of All in the Family or something like that, or one of those great shows from the day. And he says, "Oh, kid, you think you can do my job? Come on up here. Let's see what you got." And so I ran on down from the very back row, and the crowd was applauding. I was young, and they could tell I was young, 18 years old. And he brought me up on stage. He handed me the microphone, and he said, "Let's hear what you got, kid. Use my name. Call me down to contestants row." So I took the microphone and I said, "Johnny Olson, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right." And the crowd they exploded.
They went berserk.
Dude, I was hooked. I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, I got to do this the rest of my life.
Yes.
Whatever this is, up in front of people, this is what I got to do. And Johnny pretended like he was disturbed by it all, like I did a great job or something. He grabbed the microphone away from me. He said, "Give me back that microphone, kid, before Mr. Barker hears you in back. Now go sit down." And I did. But from that whole experience watching Johnny Olson, the music that he came out to, the house lights dimmed, and Disco Inferno, dun 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 dun, 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 dun. And it was like a disco in there. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the announcer of The Price is Right, Johnny Olson." And he come dancing out. Johnny was a rotund guy and he was elderly, and it was hilarious. It was just great to see him do it. I think he brought a couple people up on stage to dance with him. And do a little bump, booty bump kind of thing. And he sent them back down to their seats, and he was like, "Whew, I'm getting too old for this," and I could tell he was just kidding. It was all part of the shtick. And he went on with his routine. But what I learned that day was a couple of things. Number one, come out to some really good music that would bounce and people would just get up and happy with immediately, and have some fun with the audience before you get into your spiel. I had to do 15 minutes every day, Brian. I had to do 15 minutes of stand-up every single day for 1,585 episodes. That's a lot of stand-up. That's a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And so when I got the nod from Roger Dobkowitz after going through some initial stuff about sending him tapes and, to try to get the job when I was really just applying for the position. When I got the nod from Roger Dobkowitz that I was indeed going to be able to come on and audition with Bob Barker, I said to my wife, I said, "You know what? They're going to want me to do a warm-up. I need to sit down and write something." And my wife's really brilliant. She's helped me on a lot of stuff over the years. She's got a great mind for entertainment and so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, she took the cover photo. She took this picture that you see on there. That's why I'm able to use it, because we own the photo. So we sat down in our home in Palm Springs and wrote a 15-minute warm-up routine that I memorized in a couple of days because I was on my way to shoot The Price is Right the next Monday. And that warm-up, Brian, it stayed pretty much intact as it was for my entire duration at The Price is Right.
Wow.
Elements of it would change in and out depending on world events, the types of audiences that came in or where they came from, things like that. Elements of it would change, but the basic construct of it, remained the same the whole time because it was good. And even when Drew Carey got there, I think it was like his second or third day. It was soon. It wasn't his first day. I won't go that far. It was like his second day. And it was after a show. And we had to stick around for a photograph for some reason, promo photo. And he said to me, he said, "Hey, man, I heard your warm up today." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You're pretty funny. Have you ever done stand up?" And this is from Drew Carey.
Yes.
You know, the improv king.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so taken aback by that. I was just like, because, you know, it was just something I had to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that now I'm performing, you know, because Bob would stand backstage or he'd come out of his dressing room and hear the final few minutes or so of me. You know, he knew what I did every day and apparently liked it, or it wouldn't have been happening. And then so now to hear from the brand new host, you know, you're pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have you done stand? Do you do comedy shows? I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, no, really. And in the end, I mean, after 2 years with Drew, I can't remember when it started, wasn't his first year there, but maybe second and third year that I was working with him. He was taking me to Vegas with him to do the improv show at the MGM.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, I took a lot from Johnny out of that. And by the way, also, Brian, they brought me in a taping day early so that I could see the guy that was auditioning before me and him do his thing. And he was a guy that had filled in occasionally for Rod as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I took a few things away, what not to do from that particular shadow day. I mean, the guy didn't know I was there or, you know, who I was or anything. I was standing off into the wings watching, you know, all the pre-show and stuff like that. But this particular guy, he got so excited. I mean, I could tell he was excited to be there. He got so excited that by the time it came time to get to the podium and do the show, he was so out of breath and so nervous and so worked up. There were just too many mistakes. I mean, I mean, you can come back after the show and fix mistakes and do pickups, but there were just so many. That costs time and money, as you well know. You know, an editor, an editing bay, a producer, you know, it costs all extra time, money, and they were looking to cut costs after Bob. They weren't looking to add costs. But I mean, I learned a lot of stuff. I learned what to do from watching Johnny. I learned what not to do from watching others. And hey, I made mistakes. Don't get me wrong. And you know, some warm up days weren't as good as others. And to me, that always depended on the audience, whether or not, you know, they were alive that day. Sometimes an audience will come in and they'll just be dead as doornails. And no matter what you say, no matter how many shows, 1,000 shows you've said that same line before, and people bust up.
They can't get it.
Crickets.
Right.
And you're like thrown. That would throw me. You asked about getting nervous. I'd get nervous sometimes like that. And I knew, these people aren't with me. And I've got another 14 minutes to go. This is going to be very hard today. So that would throw me. But I was never really thrown too much by, you know, or nervous too much during the show. I was so thrilled to be there, dude. I was soaking it all in.
I love it. I love it. When I was the backup play-by-play announcer for Loyola University women's basketball, the guy that was doing it then, Tom Westenfeld, called me and he said, "I got a present for you." Okay. "You want to sit in for me doing Loyola games?" What? Are you kidding? Wow. He says, "No, there's about 6 or 7 games. This is 2011. There's about 6 or 7 games where I won't be able to make it, and I could use you. You're on. Let me know when." He sent me the schedule, and I went and did the first game, and there was a young lady playing there by the name of Simone Law. And when I do play-by-play, I sometimes turn into Chris Berman, and the nicknames just fly out. So when she got a rebound and scored a basket, I said, "The long arm of the law." Her mother listened to the replay and loved it. So the next time I went back to Loyola, her mom came up to me and says, "You have to use the nickname again." All right, you're on. I can do that. Simone came up to me and said, "Keep the nickname. I like it. Keep it."
Cool.
But the best nickname I came up with, I was at Marquette Catholic in 2015 in Michigan City, Indiana. And the athletic director gave me the okay to cover girls basketball. He says, we're going to have a pretty good girls team. Can you do both teams? Well, yeah, except when there's a conflict, I'll figure out how to work the conflict out. So I did the first game, and I'm recapping the lineup, and there was a young lady by the name of Morgan Crook there. And I kept reading the name, and I said, I already know the nickname. I already know the nickname I'm going to use. So I'm recapping the lineup. The parents are in front of me, and all of a sudden I just spit out, and rounding out the starting lineup is Morgan, I am not a crook. Everybody in front of me.
That's funny, dude.
Laughing.
That's funny. That's funny.
And
Younger folks won't get that, but
they got lit. The parents were cracking up laughing. Morgan heard the name on a replay, and she says, keep it. I'm like,
nice.
What? She says, keep the nickname.
Isn't it validating? Isn't it validating to your work, your comedic sense, your professionalism? I mean, it's when you hear from somebody that you know it matters from.
Yeah,
you know, it really does. It's satisfying. It
is. And folks, if you're interested, this is the book right here. Trust Your Inner GPS is what we've been talking about the whole half hour, and it's how Rich Fields got to work at The Price is Right as the announcer. This is the QR code that you need to scan.
Nice.
I'll put it up again before we get out of here. This is the QR code that you need to scan to pick up the book. Trust Your Inner GPS is what we've been talking about the whole time, and how we got to where we are. I know a lot of folks have been saying it's helped them get to where they are. And as a kid growing up, I loved game shows. I would come up with props.
What was your favorite?
It's a tie. Price is Right and Match Game.
Match Game. Love Match Game. Gene Rayburn. Got to meet him.
Those are the two, because, well, simply put, because of the microphones they held.
Yeah.
And I saw how they would do their thing, and I started doing impressions of them. And before we came on the air, we talked about doing impressions, and we both agreed that the greatest voice actor is Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc by far.
When he did the Looney Tunes. And I told you the story about how I freaked out my mother by saying, "What's up, Doc?" And my wife Jody never heard the voices come out. So I'm in the shower one day, and I'm getting ready to take her to work, and I didn't realize that I had turned into Mel Blanc, and all the voices came out. I step out, and I'm getting dressed. I step out, and I hear her on the floor laughing, and I said, "What?" She says, "Do the voices again," and I did the voices again. Nice. That was my personal validation. Like, I'm not nuts. I love what I love as a voice. I love what I do as a voice artist, as a play-by-play announcer, as a sports talk, as a talk host. I absolutely love what I do. That is part of your inner GPS, isn't it? Loving what you do and trusting what you do.
Exactly. Ding, 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 ding. What did he win, Johnny? You hit it right on the head. Right. What did he win, Johnny? How about a new car? Yeah. No, you hit it right on the head, man. Listening to that inner voice, that intuition, like I said earlier, man, it'll tell you exactly what to do. And if you don't know your place in the world, just query it. Go to a quiet place and just say, what am I supposed to be doing in life? What is my ultimate goal in life? What do I want to do? Mm-hmm. Some may want to be a singer-songwriter. I tell this story. I do a lot of speaking now since the book came out, and online kind of counseling as well, because it really hit a nerve in people about, listening to your intuition. And I was out here at UCF in Tampa, and USF in Tampa. And I got done with my speech, and I always like to open it up to questions. A lot of speakers are like, "God, don't do that." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the content I have, it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm ready for anything they can throw at me. I'm not political, so I don't worry about that kind of stuff.
Right.
And a girl said, "Okay, so you talk about that I should be working on my goal now. I should be, but I'm in school, I'm in class. I said, well, what'd you do today though, to get you one step closer to your ultimate goal in life? She said, what can I do? I've got projects that are due. I got studying that's due. I got this. I say, well, yes, Yeah.
Mhm.
But you have break times, right? Even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. I said, what do you want to do in life? What's your ultimate dream? Well, first I asked her what she's majoring in. It was something like liberal arts, I think it was.
Mhm.
And I said, well, what do you want to do in life? And she said, well, I'd like to be a singer. I'd like to be on The Voice someday. I said, well, number one, why are you in liberal arts and why aren't you a music major?
Right.
I said, number two, I said, what did you do today to get you one step closer to getting on The Voice? And that's when she said, well, I'm in class all day. I've got this, I've got that. I said, but you got to do one thing every day that's going to get you one. This is from Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
You got to do one thing every day that's going to get you one step closer to your ultimate goal in life. Send out one email, send out one MP3, contact one agent in Hollywood about representation. How many record companies did you call today? Did you write any lyrics today? Did you call any local radio stations that play new up and coming artists after midnight? I rattled off about 10 things she could have done that one day.
That one, yep.
And she wasn't doing any of them, but it was an eye opener for her.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody else in the room, and I hope for everybody else that may be watching now, do one thing every day that's going to get you one step closer to your ultimate goal in life, and it'll happen. The timeline of getting to where you want to go goes from that long to that long to that long. Boom, all of a sudden,
you're there.
You're there. You're standing on stage with Bob Barker at the frickin' Price is Right, forgetting that you're the announcer watching the show, and literally Bob saying, Rich, and you're like, oh man, this is so. Oh my God, he's talking to me. That happened to me.
Yep.
Forgot what I was doing there because I couldn't believe it.
That was me also. When I first got the bug to do it, because I would practice at home all the time growing up. And as I said, I got bitten by Jim Durham, because Jim Durham was the first voice I heard in my head. And then I heard a voice named Wayne Larrivee. He was the voice of the Chicago Bears at the time. And when I first started my sports show, I said, one of the guests I'd love to have is Wayne Larrivee. Wound up meeting Wayne Larrivee in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Hinkle Fieldhouse. This past summer, I welcomed Wayne Larrivee to the show. And I said, okay, I can check that off now.
Right. Isn't it great to meet your idols? People say, you don't want to meet your idols. Oh, it'll change your whole. No way, man. No way. It's inspiration.
I surprised my crew with that because Wayne didn't confirm until we were in the break. And he said, okay, I'm ready. I got stuff out of the way. Let me have it. I sent him the link to join the show. And I had an evil smile on my face when we came back from break. And I said, I have a surprise for you guys. And Victor said, what are you doing now? And then I introduced Wayne Larrivee. And Victor said, what? He's literally echoed the feeling I had from welcoming him and talking to him. And now with you, some of my friends are tuning in and they're texting me and they're going, you actually have Rich Fields. Yep.
And it's my pleasure too, by the way. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
This has been so much fun. This has been an absolute blast. And when you gave me the confirmation, the first person I told was my wife. And I said, honey, do you know Rich Fields? She says, yeah, you sent out that The Price is Right. Yeah, I'm going to have him for an interview. Huh? I said, yeah, we confirmed. I'm going to have him on for an interview. And this is, once again, folks, this is the book, Trust Your Inner GPS. Your intuition will direct you on the path to greatness. This is the QR code that you need to scan. Take a chance, scan it, look up Trust Your Inner GPS by Rich Fields. And the stories in there are absolutely wonderful. And the man himself, Rich Fields, is here. It was here this afternoon. And Rich, I thank you so much for coming on today. It has been a delight. It has been a delight to have.
You're a real pro. I do a lot of podcasts, brother. You're a real pro. You do a really good job. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. Rich Fields, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning into The Brian Snow Show, where sports is the base, life and fun are the results?